Ever catch yourself daydreaming about retiring early, like way early? Or what about traveling the world without having to stress about work?
Yeah.
We often hear those stories and think, well, that's only for the super rich. But what if I told you that financial independence might be closer than you think?
Interesting.
We're diving into financial independence today. And let me tell you, this book is packed with some seriously eye-opening stats and actionable steps that you can start taking, well, like right now today.
It really changes your perspective on what's actually possible.
It totally does.
Mm.
But first things first, let's get on the same page about what we mean by financial independence. Basically, it means having enough passive income to cover all your expenses without needing to work.
Okay.
So imagine, no more alarm clocks, no more boss, just like pure freedom to do what you want when you want. Early retirement, more time with family and friends, actually pursuing those passions you've had on hold.
Right, right.
It's really about living life on your own terms. And this deep dive, this is all about making that feel real and doable.
Yeah, not just some far off fantasy.
Exactly.
And you know what I appreciate about this book? It takes all these complex financial concepts and breaks them down in a way that, like, anyone can understand.
Totally.
Real world examples, the whole nine yards.
Okay, so speaking of examples, this is where it gets really interesting.
Mm.
The book walks us through this scenario of the average American,
Yeah.
right, and how they could potentially reach financial independence.
Interesting.
So they use like the average U.S. household income and expenses and all that to kind of paint the picture.
Okay.
But the real magic happens when they bring in this thing called the S&P 500.
Ah, yeah, the S&P 500. So basically, it's like a benchmark for the U.S. stock market, and historically speaking, it's had a pretty solid track record.
Okay.
The book explains that, on average, it's returned about 10% per year. Now, over the long term, that kind of consistent growth can really snowball your savings. You know what I mean?
And that's exactly what the book uses to show how, by consistently investing a certain amount in the S&P 500, the average person could potentially reach financial independence in about 30 years.
30 years.
Now, I know 30 years might sound like a long time,
It does sound like a while.
but here's the thing. That's just a baseline. The book makes it clear that this is just one example, using the S&P 500 to keep things simple. There are definitely ways to potentially speed up that timeline.
Oh, for sure.
And the book actually goes into a bunch of different strategies that you can use to do just that.
Exactly. And to be clear, this isn't about just taking all your money, throwing it into the stock market and crossing your fingers, hoping for the best.
Definitely not.
It's more about the framework it provides. It's about helping you understand your financial goals,
Yeah.
how much risk you're comfortable with, and how different investment strategies can play a part in your journey.
Okay.
It's all about giving you the tools to potentially reach financial independence faster and have that freedom and flexibility in your life.
So it's really about understanding the levers that you can pull to potentially reach those goals faster.
Yes.
Whether that's figuring out how to increase your income, managing those expenses more effectively, or finding investment strategies that really work for you.
Precisely. But here's the thing, right? And I think this is the elephant in the room. If this is something that's achievable for the average person, why isn't everyone doing it?
That's a great question.
The book breaks down some of the key reasons why this might be the case, and one that really stuck with me was how much the accessibility of financial products has changed over the years.
That's a really good point. Can you give us an example? Because I think a lot of people listening might not realize just how much things have changed.
Sure. So remember how we were talking about the S&P 500 earlier?
Yeah.
Well, nowadays you can invest in something called an exchange traded fund, or ETF for short. And basically an ETF can track the S&P 500.
Okay.
And they're incredibly accessible.
So ETFs make it much simpler to invest in something like the S&P 500.
Exactly. But here's the kicker. ETFs, they really only started gaining popularity in the 2010s. Before that, if you wanted to invest in something like the S&P 500, you pretty much had to go through these things called managed funds.
Right, right.
And those often came with high fees and minimum investment requirements that a lot of people just couldn't meet.
So the tools to easily invest in things like the S&P 500 weren't always so easy to get your hands on.
Exactly. And the book argues that this increased accessibility, especially with things like ETFs, it's opened up a world of possibilities for everyday people who want to take control of their investments and their financial future.
I see. So that's one piece of the puzzle.
One piece for sure.
It's like there's this whole new world of opportunity that didn't even exist for most people just a few years ago. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a game changer for sure. But, there's another side to this whole thing.
Oh,
It's like, think about it. Our society, it's built on this idea of a workforce, right? So if everyone suddenly decided to become financially independent, who would keep things running? The whole system kind of depends on people working.
that's so true. It's like there's this built-in tension between wanting financial freedom and the way our traditional work structures are set up.
Exactly. And the book really dives into that. It doesn't shy away from those bigger questions. Like it acknowledges that this work for money mentality, it's ingrained in everything.
Hmm.
And shifting to a owning assets mindset, that's a whole different way of thinking.
It's a huge mental shift for
Yeah.
sure. But I like how the book doesn't just like point out the challenges and leave it at that.
Right.
It actually gives you actionable steps that you can take. And it all starts with, you guessed it, setting clear financial goals.
It all starts with a roadmap, right?
Exactly. Because just saying, oh, I want to retire someday, that's not really a plan, is it?
No, not really.
The book really stresses the importance of breaking it down. What do you want your life to look like way down the line, like long term? What are your financial aspirations, and what are the steps you can start taking today to make those dreams a reality?
It's about connecting those financial goals to your actual life goals.
Yeah.
Right? It makes the whole journey feel so much more, I don't know, personal and exciting.
It really does. Okay, so let's say someone's listening to this and they're feeling super inspired. They're like, all right, I'm ready to take control. Where do they even begin based on what the book says?
Well, the book lays out this super clear path with what it calls the 4 pillars of wealth accumulation. Think of it like 4 power moves you can make to start building wealth. First, you maximize your earning power, then become a strategic spender. After that, you've got to make your money work for you. And finally, stay adaptable.
Okay, I'm into it.
Yeah.
Break it down for us. What does maximize your earning power even mean?
It's not about just working more hours or getting a second job, thankfully.
Okay, good to know.
It's more about being open to exploring different ways to boost your income. Like that could be diving into a side hustle you're passionate about. It could be investing in your skills so you can land a higher paying job, or even just getting comfortable with the idea of negotiating a raise.
Yeah. Especially these days, it feels like there are so many opportunities to create multiple income streams, even outside of the traditional 9 to 5.
For sure. And the book really encourages you to get creative, try different things out, see what works for you. But it's not just about earning more, it's also about being smart with the money you've already got. And that brings us to the second pillar, becoming a strategic spender.
So is this where we get into budgeting and like cutting back on all the unnecessary spending?
It's more about being mindful with your money than miserable. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah, I get it.
Like the book talks about figuring out the difference between needs and wants, tracking your spending so you can see where your money is actually going, and being a savvy consumer. It's not about depriving yourself. It's about making sure your money is working hard for you, not just slipping through the cracks.
So you can put more of it towards those long-term financial goals.
Exactly. And this is where things get really exciting, especially when we think back to our conversation about the S&P 500 earlier. Pillar number 3, investing in productive assets.
Making your money work for you. Tell me more. I'm ready for this.
This is where you take action and actually put your money to work, right?
Right.
Where it can potentially generate that passive income and build long-term wealth.
Okay.
Think about things like stocks, bonds, real estate, even exploring other investment options as you become more comfortable.
So basically putting your money into things that have the potential to grow over time.
Precisely. And the great thing is the book doesn't just throw all this complex financial jargon at you. It breaks down all these different investment options in a way that makes sense.
Perfect.
And the most important thing is figuring out which investments align with your personal financial goals and how much risk you're comfortable taking on.
It seems like the more you know about investing, the more empowered you are to make good decisions.
100%. You don't have to become a financial expert overnight or anything, but the more you understand, the better.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right, so we've covered maximizing income, being a strategic spender, and putting our money into things that have the potential to grow. What's that fourth pillar all about?
Adaptability. Because, let's be real, life rarely goes exactly according to plan.
Never. And the financial world. It's always changing, too.
Exactly. Your income might change, your expenses will probably fluctuate, and the market definitely has its ups and downs.
Yeah, for sure.
So this fourth pillar, it's all about being prepared to review and adjust your financial plan as needed along the way.
So it's not one of those set it and forget it kind of things.
Not at all. Think of it more like sailing a ship. You've got to be ready to adjust your sails as you go, whether that's dealing with an unexpected expense, navigating a shift in the market, or just rolling with whatever curveballs life throws your way.
That's a great analogy. I really like this pillars framework. It takes something that can feel totally overwhelming, like actually achieving financial independence, and breaks it down into these really manageable steps.
And that's what makes the book so helpful, you know? It doesn't just throw a bunch of information at you and then leave you to figure it out on your own.
It really feels like it's giving you the tools and cheering you on, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, totally. And speaking of being adaptable, there's another point the book brings up that I think ties into this whole idea of staying ahead of the curve.
Okay, I'm listening.
It's like, well, the financial landscape is constantly changing, right? Like,
Yeah.
there are always these new financial products and new technologies popping up.
Right, like how we were talking about ETFs earlier and how they've kind of changed the game for everyday investors.
Exactly. And the book argues that all these innovations are creating even more opportunities for regular people to build wealth and achieve financial independence.
It's exciting to think about.
It is. It really makes you wonder, like, what else is possible in the future? You know, what new tools and strategies will be available to us?
Yeah, totally. So as we wrap up our deep dive into financial independence today, what's the one big takeaway you want listeners to walk away with?
You know, for me, it really boils down to empowerment. This book, it's not just about crunching numbers or memorizing strategies. It's about taking control of your own financial future.
I like that.
It's about understanding that financial independence, it's a journey, and it's a journey anyone can start no matter where they're at right now.
It's about taking that first step.
Exactly. Whether it's setting a small financial goal or just learning one new thing about investing, every step counts.
It all adds up.
It does. And remember those four pillars we talked about? Those are your tools. They're like a roadmap to building a life with more financial freedom and flexibility.
Such a good framework. Well, this has been amazing. I feel like we just scratched the surface of financial independence today.
I agree. There's so much good stuff in there.
I definitely encourage everyone listening to check it out. You can actually find a link to financial independence in the show notes.
Definitely check it out.
And as always, thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into a topic that matters to you.